Welcome, Tammy. So excited to have you on our podcast. How are you today?
I am feeling inspired. We've been waiting for this interview, so really excited to be here.
Tammy is the global leading expert on self talk. It's a very interesting niche, very powerful. And from the experience I've had in multiple conversations with you, the work that you're doing has incredible impact to both children and adults. So I would love to share this story with our listeners. And why don't we start with the early days? What was your life like as a child? And as you grew up, what were your influencers? What influenced you? And when did you get that light bulb moment that this is exactly why you came here is to do this thing that you're going to share with us?
I love this. And I've got a collection of books to kind of help us guide us through these stories because to me, stories stick and we remember stories. So I love that it's an invitation to go back to my inner child, starting with my younger child self, and then going from there. Where we can go is, how did this all come to be? Well, my struggle through the school system, Mark, is where it all began because as I was going through the school system, I didn't feel very good. I was really young when I started school. So I started at 3.5. So I was a lot younger than some of the older children in the classroom. So I think that was already a disadvantage. And then my learning style was dyslexic. I'm a visual
Mhm.
spatial learner, so I was labeled learning disabled. And those labels stuck with me all the way through school. And so, again, my self talk, which I didn't understand that was a language, was telling me I'm not very smart or I don't fit in. And there was not academic subjects for me to measure my worth through letter grades, right? There was no areas where I felt like, oh, I'm really good at this. Or if there was, it was like art that I was really good at. And it wasn't given a lot of credit. So as I went through high school and I went to college, was the first time I realized, hey, you know what? There's something that I'm really good at. And it was my professor came up to me and was like, Tammy, you're super amazing at psychology. And I got a 98 in psych. And she's like, could you be a tutor to the other students? And for the first time, I was like, don't you realize that I'm not very smart? That was my first self-talk response, right? Is like, I'm not very bright. I'm learning disabled. But again, it's like Einstein says, if you judge um, a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will believe its whole life it's stupid. And that's exactly what happened to me is because my strengths weren't identified. I didn't have anybody really, you know, look at me in a except for maybe like babysitting. I was really good at babysitting, or my friends would talk to me and I had really good answers and they're like, you always come up with these amazing ideas. So it was those like little moments, but again, because my self-talk was always forming this opinion that I'm not smart, because the teachers are the ones that identified me as that, and they're really smart, right? So they know what they're talking about. So that is where kind of the first of the journey began. I was in psychology. I started to really thrive. And then I went to become a school teacher, went into early child education, teaching, and then I was really good in that. I was getting 4.0 in teachers college and early childhood education. I was top of the tier. So that's when I started to realize, hey, you know what? I am good at this, and this is kind of my natural flow. So that's kind of where it first started.
Yeah, the impact of believing somebody else's programming at an early age is very delicate. Let's go into the work that you've done to kind of enable or correct that deficiency, if you like, in the school system. But
Mhm.
let's dive right into your book. What was the first book that you wrote when you started on converting these ideas into physical paper so that it could be, shared with more than, people, one person at a time?
So it's interesting. The book that kind of came to me in a download was after a dove hit my window. So I was a
Ooh.
school teacher. I'm teaching in a grade 5, 6 class. And at the moment of silence, the whole school was silent, right? Because we were all on the announcements, just standing still. And this dove hits our window, the grade 5, 6 classroom window. And it literally sounded like a gunshot because it was so loud because we were all so quiet. And I'm standing there and I'm looking like the window, I'm facing this window. All the kids are facing me. And I tell you, like, I got emotional because it didn't feel accidental. And it felt very deliberate because here we are, we go in the gymnasium and there's poppies and doves everywhere. And this dove literally just hit our window and left like the impression on it. And I went home and I'm like Googling, like, symbolism of dove and 111, like 11 11 11, and I'm trying to figure all this out because I was like, this feels like this was a message for me. And the message in 2005, because I wrote it out, is 11 represents the vision, 22 is vision plus action, and 33 offers guidance to the world. And I was like scared too,
Wow.
because I was like, what does this mean? I'm not smart. I had really low self esteem. And it's taken me 20 years to undo all those paradigms and belief systems and to access something bigger than myself, than the limitations and the labels that I've been given. And so, that was a slow journey. And that dove for me, as I started to look at the symbolism of the dove, represented peace education,
Mm.
and not just peace, in the classroom, but inner peace. And that journey of trying to find my own way, that is what the book started with, Jeffrey Finds His Way. It's about a little angel called Jeffrey who's looking down from heaven's gates and sees these children in Earth School struggling and not doing well in Earth School. And he's questioning God. This stereotypical image of God I have it's basically an interactive coloring book as well. So you could
Mm.
color the pages as well. And there's the dove. He asked God, how come Earth School isn't like school in heaven from Angel Joseph, where all of us shine brightly? Because he sees these children suffering. And so he's like, you should do something about this. And God's like, no, I don't interfere. So he's like, well, I can't go and have fun with all the other angels because I'm seeing what's happening down below. So he's like, and I have this big heart, right? And he's very empathetic. So he's having this hard time with just being an observer from heaven's gates. And he wants to go down, and God lets him go down on one condition: he has to find his exact opposite. So the storybook goes how these two angels are in the wrong kind of fit. Emmanuel is the gatekeeper, really smart in numbers, and he's stuck at the School of Arts. And Jeffrey is in a regular school system like me, and didn't feel very good and was dyslexic. So it's this play on when we're not in the right fit, what happens to our internal self-talk and our dialogue, and how do we feel about ourselves.
When you said the book was downloaded to you, can you explain what that means and how did it happen?
Well, that was the first time I literally kind of really opened. I think the dove became like the gateway to things and the connection to my higher hero self. And I didn't, like, now looking back, I could piece it all together. But at the time, I was so new at this, I wasn't understanding. I now know I'm Jeffrey. But at the time I was writing the book and the downloads were coming through to me, I didn't understand that. I was just writing it down. But this download happened, and it was like, it just came to me. I just had an idea. I just knew what the story was around. And then I had this treatment with this woman, and I was telling her about it. She goes, there's a book by Neil Donald Walsh. And she's like, you should look that book up. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna go. So I went to the bookstore and I found the book she was talking about. Donald Walsh. Let me see. Little Soul in the Sun. There it is. It comes to me in like in a delayed response. It's called Little Soul in the Sun. And the concept was really beautiful. It was a children's book that he had written. And I love the concept of looking at things in the most utopiary kind of world, if there
Mm.
was a utopiary classroom world where all the children could shine brightly and be acknowledged for all their different gifts because they're all unique, I was like, you know what? I I'm gonna borrow that concept. So that's what I did. And I had them be angels at first, and then they come down and they forget that they're angels like we do. We forget of our, a lot of times, our higher purpose and passions. And so they come down to earth and they're struggling. But it's not until the two boys actually meet where they become like these superhero dynamic duo because their strengths complement one another. And the concept is God didn't want them to go alone because we're not meant to do it alone. We're meant to find other people to collaborate with. And if you think of animal school, every animal has its superpowers. Like the fish is amazing at swimming and the bird is incredible at flying. But if you put the bird in the water and the fish in the sky, they're both going to feel like they are not, competent or useful. So that was the play that I was getting at with Jeffrey Finds His Way. And I remember with my grade 5, 6 class, when I was teaching it with my students, one boy, literally, as we were reading the story, left and he just broke down. Like
Wow.
it could make me cry right now because he had identified with Jeffrey so much that he was struggling in the school system, and he realized, I'm just not in my element. It's not about me. And he got it. And so this is why, like for me, because my pain to purpose is I had felt his pain and I knew that
Mm.
pain. And I thought, this is my, for me, my biggest injustice is children going through a school system, and they're all meant to feel like if they don't align with those academic letter grades, and they're not, scholars in math and language and science, that for some reason they're not good and they're not smart. So that's my big kind of, vision and mission, is to really help these children. And I truly believe my higher self has come here with this vision and mission, and that dove was actually built into the story to help Jeffrey never forget, where he came from and what his mission and purpose is.
It's great, that you witnessed firsthand the activation of that child that you were in the classroom.
There was another child, William, that really struggled through the school system. And he was with me for 2 years. And I became a huge advocate for him because what I saw in the classroom was all these labels. I just realized he needed different supports. And when he was with me, he started to go from this child that was learning disabled and was shy. And we started to remove those labels. And his mom was a huge advocate and
Mm.
really wanted to work a lot with me because she was like, who I see at home is not who they're portraying him to be on the report card. And so there was like this disconnect. And I said, you know what? Let's take this and let's look at, your child best, I was saying to her. So let's really, and I became an advocate to the principal and special education. And he stayed with me for 2 years and he grew into a leader. And this mom ended up writing, a testimonial on my behalf. She was very worried about when he was going to go on, but at this to the next year. But we had given him such a foundation in his confidence and his abilities that he was able to go through the school system. And now I'm friends with her on Facebook. We always connect, and he's thriving because he was like a hands-on boy.
Mm.
Strong, smart, really good with fixing things and, just different strengths than the academic strengths. But it was the confidence that was starting to get withered away. So that was a big thing.
And what year was this approximately in your journey that you wrote and released the book?
Jeffrey Finds His Way. Well, the dove hit my window in 2005. That's implanted in my brain. And the book was published 2012.
Okay.
And what's interesting is I went to a writer's workshop, and that's where I met my co-author, Susan Howson. So the book had totally come down to, in kind of downloaded into me. And when I didn't have the confidence to, like, I'm not an author, I'm not a writer. And I go to this writer's workshop and I met her and her husband, who owns Campus Crew, the clothing company. And her sister was a teacher at the school that I was with. And her son and daughter were dyslexic. So her husband that she admired, her son and her daughter, and she had known that world. So when I approached her and said, hey, would you like to come and co-author the book with me and publish it together? Because again, it was almost like we were meant to do it together, like find my opposite. And
Mm.
she was like the left brain and I was like the right brain. So it was like the story actually needed both of us to bring it into form, because I wasn't meant to do it alone. I wasn't meant to write that book alone. And then she's like, I'm really busy. There's no way. And then sure enough, we came on into a partnership and we had an 11-year run together doing all of this.
This also sets the stage with several other collaborations and partnerships that you shared with me that are quite magical, actually.
Right. So after Susan Rizzo and I, Lucenti Rizzo and I kind of went our separate ways. She had her dad was falling ill and she was like, I need a little bit of break. So she went her way and I went my way. And that's when the next book, Dreaming Big, Being Bold, came in, where I had to find my own voice,
Mm.
which was really interesting because everything we had done together, Susan and I, was part of the we are. And everything I did was part with her and I. So my own personal identity had kind of got lost. So that this new book, Dreaming Big, Being Bold, Big Dreams, Little Dreamers, was my chapter. And I had to really just go at it alone. So it really became like, what's my voice? What's my specific superpower? And who am I independently from someone else? And that was a really big moment. And that's the book where I actually tell the story of the dove hitting my window on 11/11/11 as my call to action and my struggles through the school system. So that's the one book. And then I was part of a group of people in this book series, co-authors, and I really liked having a community that we all came together and we were able to do personal growth and development. So I really grew as an individual and as a life coach and as a person on my own, which I needed to that early on in the journey. And that book took me into another co-author partnership, which is with Jenny Fitzpatrick and Susan Howson and I, and we did this with it was Awaken Your Inner Hero, featuring 50 kid heroes across Canada. And Severin Suzuki actually wrote the foreword. David Suzuki's daughter wrote the foreword
Wow.
to this beautiful book, and all the children's voices. It was about the children and their voices, and the parents, teachers, coaches, and mentors that championed and that were behind these children to help them to become resilient through the hardest or the most heroic adventures, right? And times of their life. So it's a really powerful book. And we had kids all across Canada in this book. So that was one book led to another book. And then that was super fun.
I can totally see now where this is going because I know the last part of the story, but not the earlier part of the story. So it makes total sense. And then what happened?
And then COVID hit, and I ended up working with meeting my partner, Sylvia Tam. So I met her through online with Roger Hamilton, and we did a young entrepreneurs workshop with her. There's 250 kids around the world that signed up for this young entrepreneur, and I was one of 4 of the educators that ended up coming on and teaching the youngest group. And so
Mm.
from there, I was trying to take with these really complicated subjects that they were teaching, because all of these incredible entrepreneurs were teachers and the mentors and the leaders in this group. But to break it down enough for 9 to 12-year-olds was really tough. And one of the things that I ended up doing was putting it into a storybook, and I connected it to the Three Little Pigs. And Sylvia had heard me and she's like, oh my gosh, this is so brilliant. So Sylvia and I, when we became partners and we started to work together, her and I published this book called The Three Pigpreneurs. And that connects us to our journey with Adam and Matthew Torin. with who own kidpreneurs. So we started to use this book to go with the kidpreneurs program, which was a really fun way to look at, again, each one of the three little pigs has different strengths, but they shared the same vision that they were building a building business, a construction
Mm.
company. And of course, they're little pigs that build homes, right? So Billy, Millie, and Tilly that represent Adam, myself, and Sylvia. And we
Yeah.
took on our qualities and characteristics and put it into this story for the young entrepreneurs, which was really fun. And then you can see at the back, you have the milestones, the promise, the passion, the practice, the purpose, the plan, the pathway, the partners, the philanthropy, prosperity, and perspective. So we built the whole story of the three little pigs into a on our course for kidpreneurs, for the educators to train young children. Because the earlier you start with business, like Adam and Matthew have shown, they started their businesses as young as 8 and 9, and now, are incredible leaders and grandfathers now in the industry for young
Wow.
entrepreneurs. So lots of fun.
Putting this difficult business concepts in words that children can understand is a challenge, and I guess you guys pulled it off with that book.
Absolutely. And our joint venture company is called Camp Supernova. So it's the way we take children through. And we were pulling from everybody's strengths. So I'm a school teacher and was able to take the concepts and through stories and character development. And Sylvia and I worked on that. And then Adam and Matthew's foundation with kidpreneurs, we built and integrated a lot of the extra concepts into that. Sylvia is a mompreneur raising 3 kidpreneurs. Her son, Ben, ended up becoming the COO of Kidpreneurs. Her
Mm.
3 children are thriving in business and entrepreneurial leadership ways. Ben ended up winning the #1 spot with the young entrepreneur, or the entrepreneurial program with Roger Hamilton. So that's, again, all these interconnections. And then he ended up working for a week with Gary Vee and his team in New York City. Like, this kid was like on fire, and I was watching this inside and from the sidelines what was happening, and so was Adam and Matthew. And that's how we became a joint venture company called Raising Empowered Kids.
All of these things that happen, you almost have to believe that it was all meant to be in divine intervention.
Absolutely, because now, if you go back to the dove hitting the
Mm.
window, 11 is the vision. 22 is vision plus action. And now internationally, after COVID, we're online offering guidance to the world with all of these programs. So you can read that amazing story, our joint venture company, in Cracking the Rich Code with Tony Robbins on the front. We had Jim Bright bring us in, and this is 250 thought leaders and educators and business entrepreneurs that are all in this series. And so, again, networking with like-minded, like yourself, who think outside the box, because I've had one foot in education, where I've been able to implement all this stuff, because I've been in the industry over 25 years now as a teacher, and now kindergarten specifically. And now I've had the other foot in personal growth and development, spirituality, my own spiritual growth and learning stages that I've been able to connect and bridge all of this, which that's what gives me that really unique space in the industry, because most people are either in personal growth and development working with adults, or they're in the education sector where they're specifically with just children. But I've had my experiences overlap in both. And what I love about what I've been able to do with Adam and Matthew and Sylvia is we were able to scaffold children's learning from home to school to career. And usually that's always separate and
Mhm.
segregated. And there's no common language, but yet we raise children as a community, right? And so when we go from home to school to career, we should have that staircase and that scaffolding that guides people. And we've been able to stay in our own lane, which has been amazing, because Sylvia is a mompreneur really doing this in the industry with over 20 years of experience with it. I don't have children, so I don't want to speak to that. I am in the industry of education with over 25 years. And then I can speak to the education piece, and that's my lane. And Adam and Matthew have been in the business their entire life. For me, it's more new, right? So I'm learning from them, right? And we're all working together in collaboration, communication, contribution. But having each one of us in our own lane, bringing our experience, collectively, we have over 75 years, which is really incredible.
The power trifecta team.
That's right. Yeah.
You also mentioned that you either worked for or collaborated with Bob Proctor or the Bob Proctor organization. Can you share your experience and with that?
So what's been amazing is and this was really crazy. So when I sold my house, this is a fun story. When I sold my house, I got like, I literally won the jackpot, right? It was just before COVID,
Mm,
and the housing market, it was not when the market went really crazy big, but it was like a big shot before it went. And I was like, wow, like I sold my house, but the house fell through. And so I was like panicking. I'm like, what am I going to do? Right. So I was like, okay, well, I know that if I put my house back on the market, I need to be in abundant mindset. So I was listening to Bob Proctor's abundance meditation for 30 days and 30 nights, twice a day. And I'm like, okay, Tammy, you're going to listen to it. You're going to put your house back on the market, and it's going to sell again. What was interesting is after 30 days of listening to Bob Proctor, I had a message in my Facebook Messenger reach out to me and say, hey, do you want to come on board and work with Linda Proctor on this Zija International company? And I was like, at first, if that wouldn't have happened, if I wouldn't have been listening to Bob Proctor for 30 days and 30 nights, I would have thought it was a scam and said, no, no, thank you. But the fact that I had been listening to this for 30 days, and my house did sell, by the way. 3 days I got an offer, in 3 days, and it came through. But
wow.
what was amazing is this opportunity. And I literally on day like 31, I was on a Zoom call with Marnie Kay and Linda Proctor. And they were inviting me to join their team. And I worked with Linda and Marnie Kay for about 7 years with their mentorship. And Bob was always invited to, speak to us and in these small private groups, because he was in Toronto and they were in Toronto, and that's where we would go. So I learned from them, and I was in that community of their learning and that space for 7 years. So that was just really incredible as well. And the people that they connected us to.
That's a little bit of a clue on how malleable or flexible reality is. You focused on something for 30 days and something directly related to what you were focusing on manifested. That's cannot be a fluke.
No, and Bob Proctor from The Secret was one of my favorite like leadership
Yeah.
gurus. So the fact that at first I thought it was a prank. Like I didn't, when Marnie Kay messaged me, I was like, come on. And then she was like, no, Tammy, Linda Proctor's going to be on the call with us too. And sure enough, there was Linda. And then, just to rub shoulders and, we got connected to incredible thought leaders because again, their speakers and how they were training us was so amazing. So that's where honestly I got all my training of
Mm.
understanding business, and to be able to connect to the young entrepreneurs with Roger Hamilton and be able to connect and understand the work that Adam and Matthew Torn were doing and Sylvia was doing with her kids, because I had already been taught all this stuff with the Proctors and with the network marketing company that I was working with them on. And it was all free. That's what was so amazing. That mentorship, was endless opportunities, and I was able to go at my own pace. So it was really incredible.
Exactly what you needed at the right time too.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then we are at the next books. How many books are we away
This is the
from what your
last.
current project is? Because I'm only familiar with the current project.
Well, so that takes us to Harmony Hare and her three voices. So now we're a joint venture company of raising empowered kids. And so what we did is we needed like our own brand identity character where we could start. Because I literally, Mark, am a Walt Disney female version of, Mr. Dress Up. I'm Mrs. Dress Up. I'm all of these things. And in kindergarten, right, kindergarten masterclass, I have all these characters, but it was so many because I had to create all these characters to connect the learning to be fun and all these amazing things, but it was overwhelming. And I think trying to express it was really tough, right, for people to jump on board. So what we ended up doing was creating one character to start, which opens up the doorway to all the others. But that brings us to Harmony Hare and her three voices. And I was teaching the importance of self-talk, thoughts, Bob Proctor being in his influence for 7 years, thoughts become things. And what we think about, feel about, we attract about. So this whole
Mm.
world, and I was like, how do I bring this to children? Because I knew about the power of self-talk and our thoughts in the adult world and with coaching and in that industry, but I didn't know how to take those concepts and break it down for very young children. So this became my arena, and that is one of my superpowers, is taking these concepts. And I couldn't find a book out there that really was able to do that. And then so I thought, well, if I can't find a book, well, I'm just going to do it myself. And so that became our flagship program, where we ended up deciding, Harmony Hare and her three voices is going to be the kids program that we start with. And then our brand identity, and starting with self-talk, because as I started to become the self-talk expert, I wasn't there always. As I started to do my homework and my research and play with self-talk and understand it even more deeply with young children, I started to really gain a lot of insight and see the science and the research, and became more and more and more of an expert on it myself, especially for young children.
At what age do or from your experience that you've seen, like at what age do children start developing their own self-talk or self-awareness of the self-talk?
It starts as young as 3 and 4 and 5. So here's what happens is, if they're developing it, but they are not expressed or taught how to understand it, then they usually go into a default. And
Mm,
I use it in the three ways to say the three voices to make it really concrete for children is our little victim voice that says, I can't. And that was my default voice, right? I wasn't aggressive. I'd have to say I use my villain voice more on myself than on others. And then a hero voice, I really was an optimistic kid, but I had nobody to teach me that. I've had to learn that on my own. Luckily, I was a very optimistic kid and saw the cup half full. My sister was more the pessimist and saw the cup half empty. But I think having that mindset gave me an advantage. And then when I got the tools and I saw the lenses and the resources that I could develop it, because I was already naturally good in psychology, it just started to build momentum. And then I thought, imagine if I would have had this as a child, or I would have had a mentor or a guide or a parent that could have, helped me navigate those rough waters. Who could I have become? And not that I'm, trashing who I am, our pain to purpose works, but I think I could have even been even more bigger in the industry in a different capacity and way. And why not give children agency over their life, especially in the next 10 years, when if the world is going to look vastly different, they're going to need these tools and resources and mentors to guide them through this journey. Two on my clock right now. Just so you know, I looked down at it and I saw 222, keep the faith, don't give up hope, right?
just being aware of the skills or the capabilities for the children, sometimes that's enough. They just this is a thing that you can be aware of and you can develop or become better at, right? It's just that self-awareness.
Well, it's interesting, Mark, that the 222 showed up, because the first time I ever got on a call with you, it was,
Yeah.
that was our entry where we connected, because I was scared to ask you about numbers and numerology. And that's how we opened up the floodgates and really connected on, okay, this isn't just your average entrepreneurial guy out there that I'm meeting for the first time. This guy has an awareness of numerology astrology and the universe and the signs. So that's really cool that I saw it because I haven't been looking to my clock the whole interview. And then I looked down at that time at that exact moment.
I remember that phone call, and we were just doing, like, the professional conversation dance, and then I looked on my thing and I saw 222, and I said, "Hey, it's 222." And then that was the unlock code, and then our conversation totally shifted from just doing the dance to actually going deep into a lot of things. I think that phone call was an hour and a half or something like that, our first phone call.
We were
S
forever friends after that, Mark. It was
Yeah,
like,
it was the ultimate unlock. Another one of my people.
oh my goodness, because it really does feel like in my world for the longest time, especially in the field of education, I felt like a lone wolf, right? Like people usually don't understand this. It's been opening up more amazing connections, especially when I was connecting with Bob Proctor and Linda and that group. I was starting to feel like, okay, this is my vibe and my tribe. But they weren't specific in the education industry. So now, what I really want to do around the world internationally is find people that share the same vision and mission and really understand that our self talk is the foundation that everything around our life starts from that. And that self talk is also connected to our higher self. So if we could start to connect that inner dialogue, what's happening, we can start having more agency over our life, making better choices, aligning ourselves with people in that frequency and vibration. But again, if you're stuck in your negative self-talk, you're connecting with more negative, low vibrational, lower frequency people out in the industry too, right? Same with, your victim and villain. You're going to attract more of that angry, reactive community. But if you can move into your hero higher voice, your positive affirmations, higher frequency voice, you're going to start attracting more of that group in community circle into your space. So helping children realize like wherever you are is because of what's happening in your inner world. Your inner world is reflecting that outer world and giving them control and giving them their power back instead of feeling like they're just, bumping along in the world and they have no control and no agency over their life.
What you're describing is fine-tuning that wireless connection to your conscious higher self, and the more positive state that you can put yourself in, the clearer the signal is and the more amplification you have, which means you can have a more clear, direct channel. You fine tune the machine called the body and everything around it to that higher self, which then allows the individual to have alignment with their soul life purpose and truly become the best version of themselves that they came here to be. The calibration and the fine tuning aspect of it is definitely related to what type of voice, what type of self talk are you buying into? And if the self talk is putting you in a state that is more on the negative side than on the positive side, they're not getting the clear signal from your higher self.
Absolutely. And that's what started to happen to me as I started to realize, wow, you know, how I'm thinking about something is now triggering an emotional response. So now
Right.
our thoughts and our feelings are now then triggering our actions and attracting the same thoughts and feelings vibration. And the secret opened me up to that, right? I started to
Mm.
realize the law of attraction. But and if you look at it in that you know, movie, it's all this internal dialogue. But the law of attraction wasn't for kids, right? It was for adults. And we know that if you put kids in skis and skates as young as 4 and 5, who they can become by 8, 9, and 12 and 16. Tony Robbins talks about that too. The earlier you learn these skills, the more advantage and agency you have over your life. And this is where a lot of people feel like they're victims, like life is happening to them. They don't realize that it's their thoughts and feelings that are attracting that. And if they're more conscious and awake and aware of choosing better thoughts and feelings and actions, then they are going to be able to take themselves into a different pathway, a different frequency, a different vibration. So that's why I said there's nothing more important than our self-talk. And we needed a book like Harmony Hare and Her Three Voices at the youngest ages, so we could create a bridge between adults to have these conversations with young children, so they could start to have these tools and resources starting as early as we develop it, the self-talk in our head.
So let's talk about the format for delivering this to the masses or to the global community. You've got a business model that trains teachers to be able to deliver this information, and also would like you to share, if you're able to, the collaboration that you've had with the Rotary Club on an international level. Try to explain how is Tammy multiplying her goodness through other people so that this messaging can be done to more children at the earliest age possible at
Mhm.
scale.
So yeah, actually, if you noticed, there was a ding when we were in our call. That's the Rotary group. They were wanted to meet with me after our interview today because we did get some funding. We got $5,000 to put towards a peace pack for peaceful kids, and
Mm.
looking at even possibly violence in the home, how we can give parents, teachers, resources, the community tools and resources to be able to undo a lot of the patterns and behaviors and belief systems and the trauma that we were parented with. Because, if when you know better, you do better. And nobody has really taught us what to do. And when you have a new and better way, then we can start to put that into the homes and give parents the support that they need, not judging them, but giving them the tools and the resources. And because my background was psychology, and my first, actually, I went into social work as, that was my first profession where I wanted to go into school. But I realized I didn't want to be in the corrective measure. I wanted to be part of the prevention. So being able to work with the New Brunswick Rotary Group and being able to put together a pilot project like this and test it out in the community and put these peace packs together, videos, tutorials, a resource like prototype for them to teach with and use. This is really big because Rotary is connected internationally around the world. And we want to look at ways that we can start to maybe develop a model and duplicate this, where we create more peace in our homes, in our schools, our classrooms, and our communities. And if we can come up with the model for this, there is no limit, right? This could go international.
Train the trainer, or peace teachers could be something. Peace leaders. I love it.
And what we're looking at even doing is creating peace parks. So a lot
Mm.
of this story could be like storybook gardens, could be in the gardens where there could be a tree house. There could be these little wooden characters, right? They're little wooden doors on the trees where people could come and do reading and come with the book and come with the characters, and really all about embodying the mouse, Gilda the goose. Like, you could envision that this could be in peace parks around the world, where families, communities, schools come to these parks. Not only are they coming in there and reading and participating, but we could actually have where they're taking care of the park. They're planting trees. They're taking up the litter, right? They're taking care of it and ownership of it. And it could be a gathering place to bring daycares and schools and families and invite them on these kind of experiences where children are out in nature. Because this book plays itself really, really nice with Harmony Hare's Treehouse. And, the characters in here with little troll, right? It's like a little gnome, and you got the wooden doors, the red door, the yellow door, the blue door. So you could easily start to put this in. And you think about like fairy gardens, like in Ireland, right? We could easily incorporate a lot of these characters and the messages. You could have signs, right, that have messages that are there. But I really envision this, and that's why I'm working with the Rotary Group, is because I really think that this is something that we need to create more of a conscious community. around the world.
So you might be creating a whole new industry called Peace Park tourism if
Exactly, right?
people.
You could go imagine if you went to the different peace parks around the world and you knew the characters and there's like contributions. So communication, collaboration, contribution. And it's about giving back, teaching families and communities like, we're not just taking, we're also giving and we're donating our time and volunteering and, we're taking care of it. Maybe they have like Harmony Hair's garden, right? Vegetable garden where people could come and take some healthy foods and things like that. There's so many amazing things that could be built around this.
You can create a Peace Park passport that gets stamped or something happens. It can also be in an app, right? You just need it when you go to the Peace Park, you just scan over the NFC card or the QR code, and that gives your passport a stamp, and then you start collecting these. Yeah, there's so many things that you could do with that. I love it.
Yeah. And that's what we're wanting to do. So I was even coming up with the concepts for people to be able to do this in their community and get the exposure out was like books, bunnies, and brushes, where you did like a paint by number and you got to do a beautiful painting. You do the lesson and the tutorials. The other ideas I want to do is like a vision board where again, you're using the book and the word that I want to use is discover. So, discover would be the word for 2026. And then you have everything that you need with children and the adults to be able to put these together. So, it becomes a way for adults and children to play together and dream together and really get their ideas and what's inside their head out in something concrete and create this roadmap or this North Star for them year to year and something easy that, peace leaders could actually do in their community. So it would make it super fun and engaging and all around Harmony Hair and about that, hero higher self and the golden door, right, is the gateway and that choosing your hero voice as the pathway to your best and higher self. And that's where I see our licensing because it would be consistent.
Mhm.
Anybody around the world could be offering them and they would have everything there at their fingertips. So it would then they could connect that to the peace parks and peace leaders and things like that. We want to build momentum and we want consistency. We want it to be plug and play. You don't have to think about it. You have all the materials and resources. And now what we want to do is create a common language, hero intelligence language where people can start to understand it from home to school to career. You understand the common language, and that's what we're building as a trio, and why we want to scaffold it the way we do, and that's why we're looking to work with companies and businesses that believe in children. Because to me, children are going to be your next generational thought leaders in the next 20 years. So giving them these tools and strategies and helping them navigate these rough waters in the next 10 years because the world's going to look vastly different and you can't believe what you see anymore. So they're going to need to have this discernment within themselves, being able to decide what is this real, is this not real, and they have to use their three brains: your head brain, your heart brain, and your gut brain, and figure out, is this true? Because in the past, if we saw it, we believed it. But now we're awakened and we do know that there's way more than what meets the eye. So giving these children the skills, empowering them, and these awakened educators and leaders that can champion them. And that's like the book, Awaken Your Inner Hero. Children can't do it alone. They need us. And we need to be awake first before we can start to guide them.
I got a note here to talk about superpowers, right? Because we spoke about this for a while. So let's start on what is your superpower, Tammy?
That's a good one. So my superpower is really, I would say, understanding life. Existential is one of my, learning styles. Is I'm very good at connecting life and learning together. Another thing is I have the ability to see the hero in every child. I can see the good even in your worst behaved child. And I focus on their good. and I draw that out in them. When you expect the best from children, the best shows up. And that's one of the things that I truly love that I'm able to do. When other people can't see it, I can see it and spot it, and I draw it out from them. And another thing, so I'll say three, is taking really complicated subjects and breaking it down into the
Mm.
easiest form, which is why I'm able to do what I'm able to do, is take the really complicated subjects of psychology and break it down into the simplest form for 4 and 5-year-olds. Those I think are the biggest things, because connecting life to learning, children, when you're doing hard stuff in school, if you're not connecting it as how is this purposeful and meaningful in my life, it's hard to get through the hard stuff. It's hard to eat your veggies when you don't think it's going to make you healthier. It's hard to go to the gym and do hard things if you can't connect to the bigger why. And I think we miss the mark on that, and we force children to do it instead of pull them into it and get them to, be champions of doing hard things because they see the payoff for it.
How many people do you think know what their superpower is? Meaning, how many of them can clearly and confidently articulate what they're really good at? They might not call it a superpower, but do you have a percentage, or have you done surveys or questioning people on that topic?
That's one of the first questions I ask is, do you know your superpower? And honestly, I would say 9 out of 10, most people say just stunned, blank, or I don't know. And then I ask them, well, what's a bird's superpower? And they're like, well, flying. And I'm like, yep. And what's a fish's superpower? Oh, swimming. And what's a squirrel's superpower? Oh, climbing. I'm like, isn't that interesting that you could name almost every animal's superpower, but you can't name your own? And you can
Mm,
see the wheels turning. And I think, to me, that's the biggest injustice in the education system. Because if a bird doesn't know its superpower is flying and it's going out for a career, chasing after money or chasing after, availability, it's going to never thrive in the capacity that its potential is. Our number one job should be helping children identify what their gifts are. What do? We identify what their weaknesses are. That's what we do. We label them right from the get go before they even have a fighting chance out of the gate. We label them and letter grade them, and we
mm,
build a limiting belief and a label on themselves that sticks for a lifetime. And I'm still trying to undo those labels and those beliefs. And I live, breathe, sleep, eat this stuff. So it's like, to me, that's what I am here to do. That is my purpose and passion and my calling. And it's a shame that we've totally missed the mark. But if you look back at the industry, education was never about empowering people. It was about creating factory workers. And it was about creating robots, right? Children to think, not think for themselves. That's why they're passive listener learners. They're passive learners. They're not the ones, teaching and coming up to the front. Adults are. And if you question them, what would happen? A lot of times you were shot down. So we really have not, for the industry, have not been very empowering to kids.
yeah, or innovative. This is the way it's done, and or this is the way that they tell us to teach the children, and we follow the rule book. And what happens is, well, you have a predictable outcome. You're pumping out individuals that are very, very good at driving the economic engine of this reality through being predictable, obedient, reliable workers. Now, the
Yeah.
question is, okay, when we signed up for this life experience, is that what we signed up for? Maybe some people have. People that you find that are really, really happy, in my experience, the one thing that I identify is whatever it is, the thing that they're doing, they're just love, love, love doing that thing. And they're really, really good at it. So the clue is, what are you naturally drawn to? What is your passion?
Yeah.
That's where, at the earliest stage of the game, with children, we should help identify what those is so that we can put them on the right track sooner than later. So you don't have to learn these skills. Like you use the analogy of sports, the sooner that you get a kid on skis, the better the chance they'll be a world-class skiing expert in the future. But if you take that same child and at 20 years old, they realize, oh, I love skiing. Well, they're never going to actually develop to their full potential.
Well, imagine now putting me in skis and downhilling, right? If I've never been on them. It's very hard now, but children have no roadblocks. They are not they're fearless. And so this is the biggest thing is when you wait too long, it's like a bird in a cage. If you wait, they all know how to fly. But if you keep it in a cage for its entire life and now you get tell it go fly, it is not going to have the same capacity or the drive or the experience like a baby bird would. And so this is where, again, going back to Jeffrey finds his way, is Jeffrey looking down from heaven's gates and seeing children in crisis and wishing that every child was celebrated for their gifts and their strengths like angel Joseph did and seen every angel in heaven. So that's this utopiary world that I truly believe when that bird hit my window about bringing peace education, it was directly speaking to me and it was saying, we want you to help your dream in your heart from looking down from heaven's gates. You came down here and you are Jeffrey. You're that soul that wants to help children and use what you're learning and what you struggled with, because God says, Jeffrey's like, well, God, when I go down to earth school, they're going to think I'm super smart, right? Like angel Joseph does. And God's looking at him going, oh, yeah. He knew that like my superpowers was more in the arts, right? And if I went to earth school, I wasn't going to be one of those, striving kids, which is, in heaven, I am a bright light. We all are. And that's where the school system has restricted that from us. So how do we make earth school more like schools in heaven where all children shine brightly? And for me, that is my voice. That is what the download came in 2005. And that's what I'm here to offer guidance to the world.
In other words, you were paying attention to the clues that the universe was giving you, the dove hitting the window, and taking those clues, sitting on them, meditating on that, and then finding out what it meant, and then taking action. I think when we design our life path as a non-physical entity and we come in to become a physical entity, we, in the game that we've designed for ourselves in this life journey, we give ourselves clues or guideposts that if we're going off course, off of the storyline, we'll get these little clues here and there. And if we don't listen to them, the clues will get louder. If we don't listen to them, we might have near death experiences or an
Right.
accident to really push us back into why we came here. And the people that are living out their true soul, life, mission, purpose, whatever you want to call it, you can sense that they are effortlessly going through this experience with
Hmm.
the least amount of pain and suffering because they're living up to their destiny, their
Yeah.
potential. You're a perfect example of that, oh, there's a clue. What does that mean? Let's do something about it. And then the smaller clues that we talked a lot about, these synchronicities with numbers showing up and giving us validation. When that first started happening to me, I couldn't even believe it myself. So I was taking screenshot and taking pictures. Now it happens so often. It's like, oh yeah, good. We're good. Thank you. We're good.
Hey, I hear you. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Yeah. It's an everyday occurrence, and it's, you send out the gratitude for the message, but it's not like a big event because it happens so often. So, and I think that's also a clue in as we progress into this adventure, we can't figure everything out at once because it would you wouldn't be able to understand what's happening. Similar to if you're in a dark room and somebody opens the door and they put like an 8,000 watt
Yeah.
spotlight on you, which is, pure and clean and true. you'd
Yeah.
be blinded. So
Yeah.
you just need to be giving, like, these little clues and these little, awarenesses so that the aperture can slowly open up.
Yeah.
You've got your eyes aperture, but the aperture of your mind can
Yeah.
slowly open up and absorb that extra information, which is light, into your, current incarnation to live up to what it is that you signed up to do, right? That's the big thing in life. Why did we come here? Why are we here? What is this thing?
And everybody has a purpose. I say a pen has a purpose. The creator of a pen knew what it was purpose for. Well, there's no way that if a grain of sand, if a light bulb has a purpose, that a human being doesn't have a purpose with a soul. So it's like there's so much suffering in the world. And that's why when Jeffrey looks down, he sees all the suffering is because we're not living our purpose. We are not here. It's like I say to people, it's like if you use that light bulb and you're using it as a coat rack, that purpose of that light bulb is not to hang your jacket on it. And, to be light is missing. And now if you're a soul, you're feeling, that, there's something more, but you can't figure it out because you've always been used as, to hang your jacket on. But there's so much more under that. And I think that's where our soul knows that. And it's like once you awake that, wait, there's something more to this. And then you can't put the toothpaste back in, right? It's like once you
Yeah.
open that up, you realize, and that's where, as we're all awakening, and children are very awake, which is why I love working with children. They are born awake. It is, we start to fall asleep as we go through our ages. That's why children get this stuff and adults don't, right? It's that much easier to work with them, which is way more fun too with prevention versus correction because there's a lot less resistance.
As a child, you are born with the divine blueprint, full potential unlocked from day one, which then gets shorter and shorter and more restricted as you get the coding and the programming and the experiences. But by
Right.
default, a child is pure potential
Pure
with
potential. Yeah.
no limitations. If you had one secret that you can give anyone that would help transform their lives, what is that secret?
It would be self-talk because self-talk, right? If you could teach them and help them understand the importance of self-talk, their self-talk impacts them over their entire duration of their life. There's nobody's voice that impacts them more than their own voice, and in every aspect of their life, from health, the way you talk to yourselves, to relationships, to career, to sports, to just even getting yourself off the couch and going for a walk. Your self talk is navigating every aspect of your life. And yet, it's not a fundamental that is taught to every child. And that to me is the secret that would bust open the world if we understood that.
You've got a lot figured out, Tammy. I love it. One last question for you. You come across the opportunity to put a message on every billboard around the world. It could be a picture, it could be a word or inspirational quote. What would you use those billboards for, and what would you put on those billboards?
I would put the hero in me sees the hero in you. That if we were 8 billion heroes on the planet, we'd have a utopian world. 8 billion people all picked up one piece of garbage. That's it. Just one piece of garbage. If 8 billion heroes all worked in community, collaboration, communication, and contribution, easy peasy. All 800 heroes, all speaking to their health, all contributing to the world instead of taking. What do victim and villains do? They take from society. What does the hero do? They contribute. They work together. We could solve every problem on the world if every person called forth their hero to lead the way.
So the challenge for our listeners is make an attempt to look at each other human as a divine entity manifested right in front of you in their current physical form. But if everyone treated everybody else as divinity, there'd be no wars, there'd be no fights.
Heroes up here in frequency. The victim and villain keep each other in this frequency. So you can't have a villain without a victim, and you can't have a victim without a villain. So they're in this vibration and they keep each other locked in that frequency and vibration. But the hero is here. The hero is like going above the cloud. And the sun is always there, getting unstuck out of the rainstorm, out of the cloud, out of that friction, lightning, energy, frequency. If you want to get out of it, just rise above it. And that's where the heroes live. And our hero is connected to our hero higher self. The hero is aware of their superpowers, their gifts, their passions, their ability, what they've come here to do. So the hero is, and I know it's inside of each and every one of us. So when I say you just need to choose who is driving your life, who is in the front seat and who's in the back. The victim and the villain serve as a purpose, right? It creates contrast and awareness. But the hero is who we want driving the bus. The hero is who you want making your decisions in your life. And that is what I'm here to say, that it normalizes us. We all have a victim, a villain, and a hero. There is no one person that's all good and one person that's all bad. That is false. That is a lie that separates and divides us. If we all ask our hero to lead the way, we will rise as a people and we will start to find this collective. And when people ask, how do you create that in kindergarten? I said, because I don't have victim and villains. I have all little superheroes. And every
Mhm.
day I say the hero in me sees the hero in you. And that's who shows up, my little hero leaders. And I don't have behaviors in the classroom. I literally have, honest to God, no lie, truth be told, I have utopiary kindergarten classrooms, and they are the most beautiful little souls on the planet.
So the choice is chaos of the villain or coherence of the hero.
Chaos or calm,
Chaos or calm.
right? And that's why peace, love, and harmony, right? We are wanting that vibration in our homes, in our schools, in our communities, in our careers, in our workplaces. Wouldn't we all want to work with heroes? You know, isn't that the vibration? And so that's where I'm truly blessed. What I put out comes back. As I became my hero, my students became their hero. And now that's the vibration that I get to live, breathe, sleep, eat every single day in. So when you do the work, right, your inner world, then it comes a reflective reflection of your outer world. And that's the payoff.
So many things are doing very, very well, Tammy, and the world is a better place because of you and will continue to be based on the legacy that you're able to have this ripple effect and the echo factor. Truly, the hero intelligence teacher is Tammy. Uh, you've earned it, obviously, because of everything that you've been through. Before we close off, any last thoughts or messages or wishes for anyone?
I think for me, I just want to say when you expect the best from children, the best shows up. Just train your brain to see the best in yourself, the best in others. And what will happen is momentum will start to build in that. And that's what started to happen. I started to look, it's like it's easy to find our flaws. But what it's hard to do is find what the blessings are, even in the smallest form. Because again, you're focusing gratitude. And when you're in the vibration and frequency of gratitude, you are in alignment with source energy, which is your highest frequency, which is love and gratitude. So again, if you can train your brain to find the blessing, no matter what the situation is, then to me, that is going just 1%, just start to build the momentum and eventually the scales will tip and you'll start to see massive change in your life.
Tammy, thank you for being you.
Thank you. I appreciate it so much. And you know what? That was divine timing that our hearts and souls connected, Mark, because like I said, forever friends.